we have some spicy maps in front of us. Dry Arabia being the least spicy, but we're starting off with it on the driest of Arabias with Rus and Byzantines, which honestly, probably two of the most standard civilizations on Dry Arabia. If you asked me to pick out of a group of civilizations and guess which ones are going to be on Dry Arabia, it would be that those two would definitely be in the top three.
Oh yeah, for open maps, these are great ones. You know, for the Byzantines, they obviously have the ability to, I mean, we talked about the Byzantines a little bit before, getting their olive groves and their berries and their mercenary units that are quote-unquote free. But Bruce, with Dry Arabia, as you'll notice, there is a one professional scout civ and one that usually doesn't. I played against an interesting Byzantine build who went for Hippodrome and then they went for pro scouts. After that. So they hippoed just to get the scouts out of the stable instead of the town center, and then they were able to get professional scouts afterward, which makes a lot of sense because, you know, for how much value you're leaving on the table for those deer carcasses, maybe it's something that could be advantageous. We'll have to see how it ends up playing against the Rus if they choose to do that. Or there's still, because I see Jigglypuff in chat, there are still gulp builds available. You could say super hydrate, you can get those flasks and you could go anywhere.
We do not want to see any gulpers on the field today. Guys, keep your gulping to yourself. We need this to be a standardized one. We need to see professional scouts being shut down so we can learn how to do it on ladder ourselves. I know Twitch chat right now is sitting here and they're like, I can't beat this. Let's watch and take some notes from Mr. Numudan because he might have the answer we're all desperately trying to figure out. I know Beastie released a video yesterday about why professional scouts are so good. So let's go see if Corvinus can prevail with the Rus Pro Scout on Dry Arabia. Let's roll in, guys.
Ooh, game number one. This is a star-studded series, this 3-game series. Corvinus playing as the Rus in the color blue, spawning in the western side of the driest of Arabia's. Numudan is his opponent for this series, playing as the Byzantines in the color red with a very nice cistern right next to that gold, right next to that sheep, which is going to be helpful to you. And hopefully we get some of that cistern structure that ends up. So this is kind of a nice spawn because you get the berries, you get the gold, you get the sheep kind of all at the same time. And then you're going to be able to get your Grand Winery down to make sure you get wheelbarrow quicker. And your second one can go for something like a woodline over there. It makes it a little bit easier for him to do that. So pretty advantageous spawn for Numudan. Corvinus on the other side, obviously with his double hunting cabin start as the Rus, getting that little bit of a gold trickle, and will make his way to feudal. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't see a Golden Gate.
Now, Golden Gate has definitely shown its head again in these times when we just have too many resources to rebalance. And honestly, it just provides you with so many options. I don't know, the Kremlin Gremlins were always the thing we begged for, but now with the Gremlins losing that HP, they're just not as potent as they used to be. Now, Numudan, a little bit of a cheeky scouting here, out-scouting that Corvinus scout running right next to him. And Byzantine's not really too reliant on the sheep, as we know, but you want to make sure that your opponent is starved. And I think that's the main question we're going to ask ourselves. How is Corvinus going to get starved by Numudan, if Numudan can even starve him? So now we do see that Grand Winery popping down onto the berries, which is in a pretty okay spot next to the woodline. Even though it's still a little bit forward, it's an okay spawn, especially, like you said, with that beautiful cistern covering absolutely everything. Now the Golden Gate coming through, as Tim had noted. Perfect prediction here by Mr. Tim. Or actually, Dr. Tim. Apologies.
Oh my god. The respect is out of control. The Golden Gate, you know, you talked about the Kremlin a little bit, those Kremlin gremlins, and they act a little bit different because they systematically lose health and continue to go down to 1 health until they get 1 tapped and died. So the thing of it is, like, the Golden Gate to me personally was, before the Kremlin ended up getting buffed, the Golden Gate to me was second best to the Aachen when it came to any kind of feudal landmarks. And that's a hot button debate. People can agree or disagree if they'd like to. But the reason, like, what they did was they ended up buffing the Kremlin to the point where it was even better than the Golden Gate. So it's not like the Golden Gate was bad. It's actually really good. But because of the way the Rus played with the Kremlin and getting a second town center, ended up being a little bit more advantageous to get it. Now, with them getting pro scouts and everything is relatively safe, they don't need that giant 5,000 hit point outpost anymore. They can get a little bit greedier and go for that Golden Gate where it basically just spits out an extra 50 resources a minute. And if you're someone like me who first started playing the Rus and needed a crutch in terms of how to fix their macro, doing that makes it rather advantageous to do it.
It also now in the current meta just provides you with that pretty early rebalance to get professional scouts. That's a lot of sheep under that TC. Corvinus is probably a very happy man. Now, we can see there Vodka pointing out he is drowning in it right now, and we see a lot of Byzantines trying to find an answer to these professional scouts. Numudan says that is plopping down that barracks before anything else. And now, with that first Limiter coming out, let's go see where he puts the man. And it looks like he's looking straight at that deer pack forward. Never mind, he's changed direction. He's changed his mind. But those deer are in danger. Just going to scout out and see exactly what's happening now in Numudan's base. Corvinus is cooking, and he's cooking some venison.
Yeah, and based on where the deer packs are actually spawning, Numudan's 2 deer packs that are supposed to be safe are relatively in front, so Nubudan's got to go out and do something. Obviously, the Limiter are a good choice when you're dealing with scouts, and especially slower ones with those carcasses. But Corvinus has a couple deer packs that are relatively safe. They're not necessarily behind his base, but a little bit to the south. So it'll be difficult if he does want to get Limiter over there. It'll be difficult to actually kind of stop that from happening. And we talked about the yoinking of deer and all of that kind of stuff and how important it is. But at the same time, you still have 2 deer packs that are safe. And if my math serves me correctly, that's 2,450 food per deer pack, which means 245 bounty and gold for free for the Rus. So he's going to be trying to yoink just a little bit and then continuing to make scouts that are professional out of those hunting cabins to continue to get his safe ones.
Honestly, seeing 7 scouts on the field is going to be absolutely destructive. -1 now as Numudan loses his to the TC. Brave Scout going down. I feel like I related to that very much. Numudan, it is hard to control them, but now with 7 scouts, let's see how Corvinus controls those. They are shift-clicked into oblivion, and those Limiter standing on top of the deer packs, they're still going to struggle to actually do damage to these because these scouts run pretty quickly. But we can see now Numudan moving those Limiter a little bit closer to the base as well. Look at that Limiter. He's going to be able to chase that guy, but the deer is going to be plopped down a little bit closer. Now, the longbow contract has been chosen, and we'll see if this means very much of an aggressive push here by Numudan. I feel like when you're playing the Byzantines, you don't want to be playing into the Rus base when they have unlimited food, which is exactly what's happening. You see these scouts are printing carcasses at the moment.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, again, with that safe pack, that 7 that was pretty close to the southern part of Corvinus's base have been largely scooped up. So you're going to be able to get that bounty and stuff for free. You can see Corvinus in terms of his fast castle build. He's continuing to hoard resources. He's at about 900 of food and used the Golden Gate to make sure he had enough gold to get there. So these Limiter, I mean, yeah, they're going to be able to do that bonus damage against the scout, but it's all about actually catching up to it. And this becomes kind of similar to how Relics ended up playing in Fast Castle, where it's kind of about field position. So with these deer, obviously it takes a little bit more micro, but with these deer, if Limiter do catch you, you could drop them, run, heal, a different scout picks them up, and they end up being a little bit closer to the town center, so you just kind of systematically or methodically push those into your town center, and that looks like that's what Corvinus ended up doing. Now, not going for the high trade house this time around, and going with the Abbey of the Trinity. I used to love this landmark back in Season 0 when horse archers were absolutely insane. Now, horse archers are still relatively good, and that means with that Abbey of the Trinity, you get half-price warrior monks to try to get some of those relics. So ends up being a pretty good play by him.
Yeah, and we can see Numudan actually wanted to go for I call it the responsible castle. He definitely wanted to make sure that the berry oil that he got from there, he was going to be able to keep making units. And he's using it to his best of ability. You can see here, he's guarding these deer packs. But with Abbey of the Trinity, you're just allowing yourself to get ahead a little bit more by ensuring you pick up those relics before the Byzantines does. And he's very far away from being able to do that. And that's the problem when you're playing against something like the Rus. They just have too many answers to what most people are going to be doing. The Abbey of the Trinity now, we see that warrior monk in queue. But Numudan does have quite a bit of units here. He just won't be able to protect all of them at the same time.
Yeah, because I mean, with these warrior monks, when you go high trade house, these warrior monks are rather expensive. They're 40 food, 200 gold. So you got to make sure when you're the Rus and you get that 600 gold, you got to make sure that you're still getting a little bit, whether it's out of the Golden Gate or otherwise, just to make sure you get warrior monks to actually go out onto the battlefield. Now he's got a couple archery ranges and queuing those horse archers, which I absolutely love to see. They're going to be able to do very good against those Limitanei. The longbowman might prove to be a little bit of a problem, but the thing of it is, for Corvinus, with those archer ranges, he can continuously make the horse archers over and over and over again. Numudan needs the oil to get those longbowmen out. So maybe it becomes a quantity over quality kind of thing. But he's going up to Castle Age, as we can see, Wham, and he's almost hit that 1,200 food. What is he going to go for? Is he going to gulp? Or is he going to go a little bit with the horn tower? He chooses the horn.
Yeah, responsible horn tower here at the back. Honestly, you want to make sure you get those free units. And just like we said before, you are dealing with Rus that has unlimited food, and you need to survive that power spike, because when you're getting professional scouts, a lot of people, they just forget, oh yeah, I need to food transition. I need to make sure that I survive into the late game. And they are very prone to throwing away some units. Although, Corvinus, he does not strike me as the type. Look at these horse archers doing absolute work, doing really amazing. And Numudan needs to be very, very careful when it comes to those horse archers getting into the back of his base. Now, luckily for him, he has discovered the invention of a wall, which Tim has never heard of. I heard on stream, although off stream I hear that Tim is actually a dirty waller. So he will be able to get a little bit of defense, the ultimate counter to horse archers being walls, and the longbows not going to be doing too badly either.
No, I mean, obviously they don't have the mobility that a horse archer does, but because of their range, they're going to be able to pick some off, and that is definitely what ends up happening. Now, if you have enough horse archers to kind of take down those Limitanei, you could use warrior monks as a front if you really wanted to. Saint's Blessing could definitely help you, gives you a little bit of range defense also, and let's not forget, for the Abbey of the Trinity, you have special upgrades that are warrior monk related. You know, you can increase the duration, you can increase the potency of those horse archers and of those warrior monks' blessing if you choose to. Now, with all of these scouts carrying a little bit of a diversion tactic to kind of swipe at these relics, and it looks like he might be able to, Saint's Blessing, with those scouts, but because you have a butter knife, just getting that just a little bit sharper ain't going to do much for you. They're going to have to walk in the opposite direction now. With that golden horn, because he's gotten longbowman and went for that Western contract whammon, he has the potential to get not only longbowman, but Landsknecht as well. And especially with Corvinus making men-at-arms as a front, those Landsknecht could actually be pretty good.
Corvinus also did not do too well with the relics. He didn't micro those units perfectly. And I mean, you need to micro them perfectly when you're dealing with this mass of army that he has. So Numudan has that chance. Corvinus has given him that opening. And granted, it is so difficult when you have so many units to keep control of. Horse archers being really, really, really easy to lose. The scouts running straight into the spears. Longbows perfectly target firing those. This support coming from the back here. Corvinus is bleeding units. And the problem is, what I said earlier, a lot of people, they lose some units. They're like, it doesn't matter. I've got unlimited food. And this is where things get out of control. We can see now he is floating a lot of resources, though. And honestly, I'm asking myself, what is Corvinus cooking? Numudan now, he needs to think about, what am I doing next? Because the men-at-arms have joined the party. And it doesn't look like there's anything that can deal with that just yet. These longbows really, really wanting to take down with that relic. But now they need to kite, and they need to do as much damage as possible, because he's going to be in a little bit of a sticky situation if these guys get to the base. The scout also does go down, and that will provide a little bit of slowdown for that Corvinus vision that he's got. And we're dead even in economy right now, with Corvinus having a little bit of you know, relic or two. But he also has Rus, which is pretty damn good when you have all those deer under your TC.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what Corvinus's bounty is right now, but it's got to be pretty good with a lot of the deer that he ended up pulling back. Now that these deer are starting to wrap up just a little bit, I think there are still some on the map that he can take. I think because of those men-at-arms, he has the potential to get a little bit more map control and push out as much as he wants to, but he doesn't have a scout on the battlefield right now. So has the potential to get them. Maybe he'll get them a little bit later and have the presence of mind. Yeah, he just queued 4 of them. If you're Numudan, you're probably thinking about a little bit of an army composition change. You know, he's going with some of the Varangian Guard, but you're seeing men-at-arms and you're seeing horse archers. Ranged masses, both longbowmen and crossbowmen, you get them both together, they could really destroy this army if you micro them correctly. But Numudan's going for a little bit of firepower with those Varangian Guard.
And with the Varangian gods, he's definitely going to have a little bit of an edge here when it comes to getting on top of that army. However, those men-at-arm numbers are really, really scary. And when he starts getting the second level upgrades here, this is going to be hard, but he's not there yet. And Numudan, I feel like in this fight, he could just have the edge because he also gets these units for free, a lot of these. So when he loses something, it is replaced for free. And maybe that's just going to be a little bit better than the professional scouts that are slowly not paying off anymore.
Yeah, I think it's just about how quickly you're able to replace them, right? I mean, obviously he's getting some berries over there on the eastern side. Hopefully he made a mill at this point. But you still have, there we go. You still have a decent amount of olive oil per minute, so you're able to continue to get with that longbowman production. And obviously the Golden Horn is going to help you out as well. With all of those extra units, you're right. Is this going to be enough? And now that he's adding Varangian Guard in here, maybe that's the little bit of front power that he needs, but I'm telling you, like, horse archers, they have enough base damage, and Corvinus is getting the second rage damage upgrade, so those horse archers are going to do 14 base damage against a Varangian Guard that can't catch up to him. So is this the correct choice for a front line? I'm not so sure about that.
I'm waiting to see that archery range switcheroo come into just so that he can make something other than longbows. But, you know, even though a longbow doesn't counter a men-at-arm, I would say 60 of them do pretty well against him. So we'll see if he just doubles down and gets more of them. But keeping in mind now, Numudan also needs to go out on the map. His gold just ran out. He's started going to get gold in other places. And horse archers, their favorite type of snacking is when you get to go on the rest of the map and actually pick off those villagers. So those horse archers very safely tucked into the base, and now these scouts bringing home a feast. Everyone's going to be eating tonight, but they need to eat quickly because Numudan looks like he's ready to move out. And that's a lot of longbows coming towards your base. But I just don't know where he's going to find the damage. He's telling himself it's woodline time. And apparently Springolds still exist. Just confirmed.
Yeah, he went for the Springold route. Corvinus did. Economic count is obviously even. Military count a little bit favored for Numudan. But the thing of it is, with these Springolds, you're going to see the Longbowmen pop them to absolute smithereens. And there's a Springold down. There's another Springold down. It looks like that third one is not long for this world, and it is not. But the thing of it is, that Saint's Blessing coming in, doing a little bit of extra damage for all of them, adding a little bit of ranged armor for all of them as well. Numudan does not have the firepower to get through this. He was able to get rid of the Springolds, which is great, but he wasn't really able to deal with the units that were actually taking down the Varangian Guard in the first place. So a lot of them ended up getting killed. He had about 4 making the front line, and now the Varangian Guard are starting to use the defender's advantage and start to push up just a little bit. Might there be a potential for berserking is later to be seen. Springolds trying to get some good hits and hitting one singular Varangian Guard, so I can't know how good those things actually are. But those men-at-arms are making quick work of the Varangian Guard because of the Saint's Blessing. The Byzantines just doesn't have any kind of blessing on their side.
They need a lot of blessings here. When you don't have crossbows dealing with that, you only have 6 longbows. And remember what I said about numbers. 6 was not included in that. 10 Varangian Guards also not going to be able to do too much. We see more Springolds being queued up. And apparently Corvinus believes in the Springolds. Guys, Springolds still exist in this game. And I'm really glad he reminded us of this. And finally, crossbows being queued up. But I feel like it's just a little bit too late right now.
Yeah, it just might be. I mean, Corvinus really using the presence of mind, and it really makes me happy to see a lot of Saint's Blessing because of how important it is. A lot of Roost players might end up forgetting them in fights, myself very much included. Now with the Varangian Guard and Land Snakes over there, trying to do a little bit of AoE damage against those Men-at-Arms. Crossbowmen obviously going to be advantageous to him as well. But this military mass might be a little bit too much, and Corvinus is going to continue to push right in front of that hometown center wham, and he doesn't give a damn about anything that's over there. Town center, Longbowman, Varangian Guard. He's looking for villagers to kill. Numudan put a second town center over there on the eastern side. You can see it just on the portion of your screen to add a little bit of defense and to try to bolster himself up in the villager count. So for him, now that he has that eco advantage, he's got to hold this.
The problem is you just suicided your whole very, very expensive army into this base against a 2TC opponent. And you don't have a transition of farms just yet. Byzantines is Byzantines. And they're going to have those free units pumping out. And even though Corvinus was very much in the lead before this fight, I feel like he just overcommitted under the TC for too long. And honestly, beautiful play here by Numudan. Kiting, and now, with those crossbows being mixed in, Men-at-Arms are going to feel like nothing. Granted, there's 0 on the map, but there will be 3 more coming. I just don't know if he's going to keep making those. But Horse Archers, Corvinus believes all the way.
And that's the thing, like, you had such a... With the Roost, you have such a super cool power spike once you get to Castle because of the pro scouts and all that kind of stuff. So the food-heavy compositions that the Roost usually like to make, you're going to be able to pull off. I think it's just... more so you gotta make sure it does something. You gotta make sure it puts pressure on your opponent, like all fast castles. You know, in Feudal Age, you kind of give up a little bit of the tempo in order to gain it back, and then some a little bit later with that technological advantage. So Corvinus, I mean, in terms of economic count, yes, he took down a decent amount of villagers with those horse archers, but because of the 2 town centers, economic count continues to be even. Those units that are coming in just for olive oil, because Numudan is getting almost 600 oil a minute, means he can continuously push out those longbowmen. But now Corvinus, he's not thinking about Springolds anymore. He's not thinking about other foot soldiers like Men-at-Arms to deal with it. He's adding mangonels, and hopefully we'll have the ability to get its rocks off on some of these longbowmen.
And honestly, that is a lot of siege. At that point, your longbowmen, they do pretty well against the Springolds, but not when there are mangonels packed against them as well. They're going to be decimating you unless you spread your units perfectly. And even when you do, there's so many of them, it's so hard to respond to. The Varangian Guards, he's still making them. He's got a mangonel of his own, but now with the rams being mixed in, I feel like this is in pure Corvinus fashion. He realized I may have overinvested on these Springolds, but we're just going to go out with a bang and take some things down. But I feel like Corvinus needs to slow down, ask himself, where am I going to do the most damage? And is it at the front of the map? Or what is my plan? The scout knows exactly what's about to happen. And Numudan, he just keeps making units, and he's done the switch. He sees the siege, and we see 4 horsemen in queue. But I don't know if he's going to be able to get enough units to collapse on those. So Corvinus, very risky move, but definitely very easy to pay off. You just need a few healthy shots to land on top of those. And with the Springolds, you have the protection. The Varangian Guards, they're going to try to get on top of those mangonels, but the Springolds will make quick work of them.
Yeah, and that's why, honestly, that's why I really like the Horseman chain from Numudan. He's adding some, don't get me wrong, Horsemen are kind of a squishy unit, but you're up against a lot of Horse Archers, you're up against Men-at-Arms, nothing that does that bonus damage to the Horsemen that we need, you know? Usually if you have a lot of siege like this, you're making Spearmen to do a little bit of body blocking, right? To try to stop that. The Men-at-Arms are basically going to do that role. Horse Archers, because of the squishiness of them, not really going to be that great, but we're going to see if Siege, whether it's Castle Age, whether it's Imperial, maintains that superiority in Age of Empires 4 with 4 Rams, 5 Mangonels. It looks like he's not making any more, but he's continuing on those Horse Archers and Men-at-Arms. So let's see if those Mangonels can get good shots off. There's a little bit of a choke point right to the north of that starting town center. Horsemen with a little bit of a flank on the northern side. Is Corvinus going to see it? Not quite. 1 Mangonel ends up going down, and it looks like instead of them trying to get shots off, they're continuing to run. Another Mangonel ends up getting popped. Some longbowmen end up going down in the fight. A mangonel in the background for Numudan on the eastern side as well. But the Men-at-Arms are providing just enough tank to try to get there. But once you start making all these horsemen, as you see Numudan doing, he might be able to take this siege down. There's only one mangonel now on the battlefield, and you can see him completely bypassing the Springles because he doesn't have those foot soldiers like the horsemen that the Springles are targeting. He doesn't even care. He's going to get rid of these horse archers. He's going to get rid of these men-at-arms with the crossbowmen and longbowmen that he has, and then those Springles have nothing.
Those Springles are going to be pretty good against the clumped up Varangian gods, but they are all dead. So longbows, they will prevail. Try to do as much damage as possible, but we can see now this TC is not ranged firing as we needed to actually survive this. So the crossbows doing as much as they can. Numudan are holding on, but it doesn't look like it's all over just yet. If he can, I say that and I see the food count and I realize he's in trouble. He was thinking about getting a keep as well. The villagers are pulled. But the problem is when those Springles fire at them, we could see a lot of dead villagers lying around. The Springles are getting into position and we see them firing into the wall.
Yeah, that might have been a little bit of a missed micro, but he needs the angle. That's exactly what he's doing. He's getting that angle out there. Look at all those villagers going down. Peasants have to throw their hammers in disgust as their lives end up getting taken. That was a rather ballsy keep from Numudan, to be honest with you, especially without a kind of front line that's going to be able to try to help them. Keep's going to go up eventually, but how many villager losses Numudan sustained through this? He's got 40 economic units left, 40 villagers. They're going to continue to go down as this keep tries to get built. Will it get completed? Yes. However, at what cost?
It feels like if Numudan held back just a little bit and let those 40 villages stay alive and just stay on the economy, he would have been able to push the units off of his base. But with that 40 villager loss, I think he's written the results of this game down already. He's decided it is what it is, brothers. We're gonna go into the next one, but he's holding strong. You can see another mangonel, villages pumping out through the second TC. Keeping in mind, we are playing Byzantines here. So Byzantines, they're okay with being a little bit behind because they're banking on the fact that everybody forgets about mangonel emplacements, and once those rain down upon your army, you're pretty okay. Although with Numudan now, he is definitely in danger. The only way he gets back into this is if he becomes the raider, and those units in his composition, 3 horsemen are not going to cut it when it comes to raiding enough to stay in this game.
No, I mean, like, obviously with Byzantines and their cisterns, you know, they're one of the civs that can operate at a little bit of an eco discrepancy. This is not a little bit, though. It's almost 2-1. The thing of it is, for Corvinus, he, I don't think, had any kind of farm transition going on. You can see how much wood he's getting. He's really stockpiling that siege with the trebuchets, with the mangonels. He's adding some springolds as well, some spearmen, trying to create a body block just to make sure a horseman don't get any kind of charge. But he's really going out to these outside food resources. You have him getting that boar to the north side, those berries all the way to the west. So I'm not really sure if he has any farm transition, where Byzantines does. Even though you're seeing Byzantines at less than 50 villagers, he's at about 1,600 food per minute. So he's able to continue to stockpile a lot of these units, and a lot of them being horsemen, a lot of them being food heavy. Along with the Golden Horn adding that ranged mass, he really doesn't need to make anything more in that regard either. So Numudan, even though, you know, this proves to be difficult, he had a hold, he lost a lot of economic units, he's definitely not out of this game yet.
The problem is with when you're facing trebuchets, you know you're at a point where you need to be able to get on top of their army. And with the amount of horses, we are nowhere near that. That keep, definitely a pivotal building in all of this, but that keep is not going to be long for this world, as you would say, Tim, because those trebuchets are firing at the speed of light, and there's a 4th one coming along. The horsemen are in the base. Numudan is like, hey, we should probably try to get back into this. But Corvinus, he's learned from his mistakes, not just getting a bunch of springolds, but mostly getting springolds, but knowing that there are some diversity in this game. This tower also just going to be poking its head out. Then the trebuchets will look at it a little bit funny, and it will fall down to the ground. The horses do get a little bit of idle time, a little bit of damage. 2 villagers going down, but 2 and 65 are very different numbers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand Numudan wanting to counter raid his way back into the game, and that's a really effective strategy. You know, you're obviously at an eco discrepancy, as Numudan knows, because of how many workers got killed, so maybe you try to even the score out just a little bit. But I don't know how many, in terms of horsemen, they don't do the most in terms of base damage, so whether Corvinus has textiles or not could really help some of those villagers end up getting saved. Trebuchet trying to take down that main town center, and there really isn't anything to stop it. Mangonels are going to end up targeting each other, but there was no spearmen making that body block up front. Now they come back in with that Saint's Blessing, so these spearmen end up going down. It looks like there's maybe some villagers pulled by Corvinus to get those mangonels repaired. Ranged mass in the back, trying to make quick work of the spearmen that are over here. And the spearmen are going to come back to those mangonels. You got to create that body block, make sure those mangonels stay alive. Another one gets popped. There is oh my god, there's like 12 Springles back there, just shooting at those horsemen. I get it, they don't get any bonus damage, but you got enough Springles, maybe that solves your problem.
Well, honestly, the Springles do look like they're basically shooting paper balls at these units, and it doesn't look like they're doing too much, but like you said, in those numbers, it is doing fantastically. The villagers keeping those mangonels alive, keeping this pivotal push alive, and honestly, I'm very proud of Corvinus for making it out here. Numudan is not an easy opponent, and with those trebuchets at the back, he is looking at doing exactly that. Those longbows trying their best, but honestly, Numudan putting up a good fight, just a little bit too greedy here and there. I really hope for next game he cleans this up and doesn't make those same mistakes, because just keeping those 40 villagers alive, this could have looked a lot different for Numudan. I think he just underestimated the damage of those Springles once you get to that weird position where they just start firing.
And you know, with all that siege, I think that was kind of Corvinus's all-in play to snipe some of these landmarks down. I mean, I know he had sacred sites at one point, but he was letting his villagers go down with a little bit of a counter rating that was there. So Corvinus did end up losing about 15 to 20 vills at the end there. And I was kind of surprised because with all of those Springles, I get it, you know, they're good against land infantry, maybe not good against horses, but they actually provided enough damage to make sure they weren't taken down. And I think the villager repairs is the MVP that we don't talk about too much, but pulling those 4 or 5 villagers up front to continue to get those mangonels repaired and those Springles repaired, keeping those trebuchets safe, it just means he was able to snipe that landmark down. So 1-0 going to Corvinus. In this game 1, you see the Roos wood economy being largely superior because of all that siege. Game number 2, however, could prove to be a different story. We all talk about, and I saw the copious amount of arguments in chat about Byzantines being too strong and nerfing Byzantines and choice words flying around. But they did lose to the Roos and to Corvinus. So will Numudan get on the board game number 2? Now, we saw a land map, and we were a little bit dry. We were on the driest of Arabias. We got our towel. We washed off a little bit. Now we got to get our water wingies because we're back on Lakeside.
No, my question about Lakeside in this stance is a lot of people still go for military wing on water maps. But if you go for the eco wing, a lot of people who do go for it, they end up having a little bit of an advantage, winning that water fight. I feel like it's just not enough against a player like Numudan on Japanese, because what you're going to be getting is a lot of shinobis jumping all around. Now, Abbasid, they can also go for the dervishes, which is insane. Abbasid just have so many choices, and they get to dictate what the response need to be. But at the same time, if you have the right micro, Numudan is going to be able to cause havoc too. So let's see if Corvinus can keep that scout on the first shinobi and actually know what's coming for him. And at the same time, Numudan needs to be sure that Aeobids is not going to take over, especially with that camel presence they have the choice of. So our first water map for this series, and the only one, because I see Twitch chat very passionate about that one. Let's roll on in.
Oh, Lakeside. We're ready for game number 2. Match point for Corvinus, playing as the Aeobids in the color yellow, spawning in the north part of this map. Numudan, his opponent for this game number 2, as the Japanese in the color red, spawning on the southern part. Now, very quickly, if you guys have not seen this map before, let's kind of orient ourselves to it as these scouts are walking hand in hand. This is a big lake, Wayman, as you can see. However, there might have been some sort of radiation in the water because this looks largely empty. And the only thing that is here, some shoreline fish that are here and one deep water fish. Now you got to remember, the deep water fish is replenishable. It gains 50 food over a certain period of time. So you can continue to fish that with a few boats, right? So it's very interesting. And I think this really tests the boundary of water in Age of Empires 4 because you have this giant lake with one group of deep water fish, and it's so important to the point where everybody docks for that one deep water fish because if you don't get it, you will lose.
The funny thing is, back on the days of Golden Heights, we used to see a lot of people just ignore the water completely and go straight into feudal. And I mean, this is in a way a mini Golden Heights, right? It's got a tiny little lake. Golden Heights has 3 deep water fish, as far as I remember. And here, people are still going on the water for that one. So the question is fishing important? We should learn from the pros, guys. Yes, it is. But now, when you are only committing mostly one dock onto this lake, is the Japanese shinobi just going to be so much better on this map? Now, of course, they can go for the second dock, but that's the question again. That I think most of Twitch chat is asking, do I? What am I supposed to do here? And usually when you have that disconnect between a map, because you don't really know what you're supposed to do, I think that's when things can get a little bit spicy. So guys, take out your little notebooks and let's make sure we actually find out, because we never know what's going to be on ladder. And we see Culture Wing coming in, meaning cheap age up, fast age up. And that means Numudan is going to be a little bit behind in the age up here. And it does give Corvinus a little bit of time to dictate what the next step is going to be. Am I going to be on top of your dock with a military ship, or am I going to give you time on land instead?
And you know, we kind of talked about on the last 4 Lakes game, we kind of talked about going up to feudal first and having your ability to get a navy and get if you're Japanese, get the shinobi. So him going Culture Wing, it means he wants to guarantee to be on feudal age first, to get one of those ships. And Numudan's actually going for the Cura Storehouse, and that was a point that I was going to allude to a little bit, is if you make the Koka Township and you make a shinobi, how is that shinobi even going to get to the dock? It has to wrap all the way around, go all the way behind that town center to actually get to that dock to sabotage it. And because there's only one deep water fish here, you can't necessarily rely your entire food economy on that one fish. So he's going with the Cura Storehouse to get those safe farms.
And that makes so much sense. I think now I can also see it makes 100% sense. Why would you even consider that for a second? But Corvinus, at the same time, he says, 1 deep water fish? Excuse me. Let me put that second dock down. I'm going to get this water. It's going to be all mine. But now my question is, Numudan's little bit of control that he had over that small little pile of fish, has it paid off already? The food that you saved from getting in the early game, is it already going to be worth it if you just give up the water? And I think a lot of people are now like, okay, do I commit onto this water? Do I try to defend it? Or do I just go all in on on land and make sure that the chaos reigns there? So Aubits cannot dictate what comes next. Cura Storehouse, about to finish.
Yeah, but I think because he's going to be that second one to feudal, he's making an arrow ship to start, but Corvinus already has a springled ship on the seas. So he's going to get over there and do that little bit of damage. And I think that's going to be really important because it's really important once you hit the feudal age that you're picking the right ship, right? You got to pick the right one. And with him going with that springled ship first, Numudan going with the arrow ship first, he's going to look at that and be like, ugh, you got to be kidding me. And then he might add something else, maybe like a demo ship or something like that a little bit later. Or he just gets rid of this entirely. Or he just walks away. That arrow ship just going all the way to the other side. Doesn't really care about that springled ship at all. And Numudan will be adding his own as well. His fishing is going to be compromised. It looks like Corvinus's fish are going to be a little bit safer. Because when that arrow ship gets there, obviously it's going to sit and shoot. And that springled ship is going to catch up. Demo ship here as well for Corvinus. It's almost like he knows exactly what Numudan is going to do because that springled ship is going to pop out. And then really quickly, as we could see, let's get that demo ship right there. Whammo blam. Oh my God, explode, please. Anybody? Hello? Light the fuse! Light the fuse! Okay. And now that that sprinkled chip, sorry, that was a little bit too much for me. And that sprinkled chip is going to end up going down, and Numudan might not want to waste any more resources on the water anymore after this.
Honestly, I don't know if you realized he kept that hostage because he knew the fishing ships need to pop out on the other side to repair it. And he knew the moment they would, he would explode. So absolutely brilliant play here by Corvinus. I honestly could not have imagined anyone playing that better. He just kept that guy on top there, knowing that the sprinkled ship wouldn't be able to do much to the demo ship. And now he gets water. And if he wanted to, he could even make a little fishing boat and go all the way into China to fish that deep water fish. Not that it would be worth it. But at the same time, if we're looking at his resources and that production queue, what is this man cooking? We see now wood coming out there. He gets a fishing boat here onto the shallow fish. But at the same time, Numudan says, I know what comes next. I've played this game before and it is castle. So let's get going. Now, Abbasid or Ayubid has a pretty good answer to what Japanese has on offer. But with this map, I can see that there is not a lot of places for those mounted samurais to sneak in. So Numudan, he's going to need to find a way to actually do damage to Corvinus. And with those walls, Corvinus doesn't want that.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a good play from Corvinus too, because he knows economically he has an advantage, right? So the longer the game goes, the longer that economic advantage pays off. So he's going to wall. He's going to hang out. Both of them are probably going to go to castle very shortly. Both of them hoarding resources over, you can see on the top left and top right portion of your screen. With Numudan going FC, Corvinus obviously going for Castle Age as well. Problem is, Corvinus has that food economy to make some of those units that are really devastating against those mounted samurai. Camel Lancers, surprisingly, not so much. I mean, they add a little bit of camel unease, but it's not like they do bonus damage. The Desert Raiders could definitely do some bonus damage. If he goes military wing in castle, gets free 3 Desert Raiders for free. That's also an option. You can go economic wing and get those 8 vills popping out, or 7 vills, I should say, excuse me, at a moment's notice. To really bolster that economic lead, that's an option too.
Question, Tim. What do you think about trade here? What if you just click a little trade ship? I wonder if it would be worth it here, because there's no answer he has to dealing with this water. Is it not just in essence an extra little villager that you're making? Even if the trade is not as great here. I can imagine just adding that little bit of gold income, considering that your second gold is quite far away from your base, could definitely extend that lifetime and allow for a lot more. And we see the eco wing being clicked up. So this is going to mean that Corvinus already ahead, getting ahead even more.
It's pretty spicy if he went for that neutral trade post. I'm not sure how much it would get, but I think, you know, it's a decent distance away. It's probably, as far as diameter goes, it might be about 30% of the map. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So maybe that's an option if he wanted to, but he definitely needs some land control. You know, obviously, you know, you could spend those resources on the trade ships, but it takes a while to pay off. So I don't think he's necessarily thinking about that. He's going to be trying to get a stable. He's adding an archery range as well to help you. And then once you start getting the Desert Raiders plus the Camel Lancers, you do a little bit of that stuff there. Maybe Numudan ends up changing. Instead of going for the stable, you could have the opportunity to go for an archery range and go for Onimusha. If you go for Onimusha, you can help against some of those Camel Lancers. If he makes Gulabs, you can end up having that choice, but he ends up not doing that, going for the Mounted Samurai.
Mounted Samurai, they are going to be good against the fishing ships that are on the side here of the lake. So he might be able to cause a little bit of pressure there, but the military ships are in position. Now, Numudan, 2 of those, they are going to be forcing a reaction from Corvinus. And that's probably the best choice here. And just like you said, he doesn't want to invest on that water trade because he's already investing in the eco wing. And with the eco wing, you get such a huge lead. You want to sit back, make units that deal with anything that Japan can throw at you, and let the villagers do the talking right after. And they're going to be doing a lot of it, because 7 popping out from there is going to make this a very heavy lead. Look at that lead just pumping out now. 12 villager difference. It does add up.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we're taking a look at that eco lead and the fishing boats providing that eco lead as well. So this is going to give the economy for Corvinus to essentially do what he pleases. And he's going for Camel Lancers. He's going for Desert Raiders. There's both of them. For the Camel Lancer and the Desert Raider, again, I hardly know her, but you have a lot of melee armor on those Desert Raiders, and you do that bonus to cavalry. It's such a really good anti-cavalry unit. And if they end up pulling those knights back, those mounted samurai back for a little bit of heal, all you do is pull out your bows and you can shoot them down.
These guys are really trying to get in here, but that wall is not going to be the most vulnerable position here. These guys are just going to be causing some attention to the side and risk taking a little bit of damage. Oh, a villager could just come over there, smack it with his hammer a few times, and be pretty happy with the result. Corvinus just sitting back and letting that economy make the difference. We see crossbows coming out from Corvinus now, and honestly, I would love to see how Numudan tries to plan against those crossbows. Wololo goes off, does not get any kills, but these Desert Raiders are doing an amazing job at keeping these samurais at bay.
Yeah, and that's the thing with those Desert Raiders. You absolutely need ranged units to try to take these things down. And the reason why is melee armor, we talked about them having 5 melee armor. The ranged armor, they have a whopping 0. So they can take some swords, they can't take any arrows. And Numudan is going to be making that transition, actually going with Yumi Ashigaru instead of those Onimusha. Now remember, those Onimusha are on horseback, so they do get uneased by the camels as well. Going for Onimusha going for Yumi Ashigaru, excuse me, just gives you the ability to not get that unease, and maybe you're able to snipe those Desert Raiders down.
The samurai numbers are nothing to scoff at, though. If those things do get into a tree line, it could be devastating. And I think both of these players are aware of that. They keep an eye on each other's bases, making sure that there's no shenanigans coming out of here. But that's not a transport ship? Oh my goodness, I was about to say, if we get some shenanigans just being... Oh, it is.
Oh.
That is a transport ship. In fact, we are going to be getting a special delivery over on Numudan's base.
Oh man, I love a good shenanigan, and that's exactly what Corvinus is doing with this transport ship. Numudan's doing the best he can on land. Obviously on water, he's not really going to have anything to play with here. So this could be a situation. Oh my god, he's throwing them all in there. It's everything. It's not even Noah's Ark. These camels aren't going in 2 at a time. There's 16 of them. And they're running in there. They can fit all of those lovely humps. And he is going to be moving right over to the other side of the base. And for Numudan, he probably thinks that water's safe, right? He's not thinking about wall in that area. You can see he's got a wall over there on the south side, right? So trying to take down, if there is some raiders or some camel lancers or whatever the case. But with this transport ship, everything's going to come out the back end. And I'm kind of thinking, if I'm Numudan, I see those camels come out down the back side, I'd be like, you know what, just forget it. I'm done.
The problem is, the moment those pop out, you have a scout. And Numudan, absolutely masterful play here. He is keeping an eye on the back line. He knew something could happen. I mean, he's probably seen it happen to several players. Those guys hiding very well, though. Oh, and the boys have arrived. Now, they are going to be getting the scout, so this means he's going to have that vision. And we see a dock being put down there, too. So Corvinus, very happy with just getting in the deep water fish as well.
Yeah, and I mean, that's using your mini-map. Right. I mean, obviously, with the scout and the vision, you're able to see it. Now, Corvinus is going to do kind of like a 2-prong kind of attack. It looks like on the front side of Numudan base. He's going to be able to go in there. Now, don't forget, if those raiders and those lancers do take a fight, there is a navy back here that could be helpful to him. He did bring a villager back just to make sure he's able to dock. But look at this. He's doing a little bit of a clown car formation. He's basically, for what he's doing, this is really heads-up play by Corvinus, and I'm very impressed. The heads-up play that he's doing is he's clown carring that transport ship. So in the front, he's going to be able to do some damage. So then the Japanese army has to split in 2 different directions. As soon as that army goes up front to deal with this, they come out of the transport ship and start attacking. Now, he splits off. He puts the Yumi Ashigaru basically by themselves on an island. The problem is, if there are some camel lancers here, and there are 2 of them, they're going to be trying to snipe down those desert raiders, but those camel lancers are going to have a field day. Now, all of a sudden, Yumi Ashigaru, the thing that you were supposed to have against those desert raiders, they're gone. And now you're dealing with this front push.
And there's nothing you can make to actually deal with these. At the same time, he says, actually, I am going to make something of this. And he tries to kill this army at the front, keeping in mind that the numbers are quite uneven here. But now with the crossbows being gotten on top of, it doesn't look too bad for Numudan here but at the front. But at the back, things are not looking great. Camel and Ease keeping these at bay. They do clean up quite a bit, but Corvinus is still ahead, and now he's inside the base, idling the economy. The camels are just having a blast and killing everything in front of them. 8 total kills now, keeping in mind some of those were fishing boats. These guys are just going to go get back into their clown car and be ready for round 3.
And, I mean, I know you said it wasn't looking that bad, but Numudan just kind of lost both sides at the same time. That military count now 30-14. And let's not forget, through all of this, Corvinus has continued and maintained a very healthy economy, an economic lead over Numudan for this. So with Numudan losing a lot of these units, it's going to be difficult for him to actually make them up again, especially with the mounted samurai, whether that are rather expensive. So he's going away from those. He's going to be adding some spearmen, which are going to be good against those desert raiders. They're going to be good against those camel lancers. And if the desert raiders decide to pull out their bows and try to take down the spearmen, maybe the Yumi have something to say about it. So Corvinus has a lot of these expensive units. You can see the army value difference on the lower left-hand part of your screen, because not only does he have more army, but every one of those army units are so population efficient in terms of cost. There's a big army value discrepancy. And Corvinus now, with the 2,000 wood that he's got sitting in his bank, he can make just about any siege apparatus that he wants to, and he's going to start going with manganiques.
Yeah, the fact that he's floating this much wood just gives him so many choices. He can decide, I want to make farm transition, I want to make more siege, I want to make 16 production buildings in front of your base. And it's all going to be within his choice. He does spend all that wood, and one of it going to a mangonel, but the rest of it, I'm guessing he's just farm transitioning behind this, making sure that he reallocates those. Look at those beautiful farms. That's just going to mean more camels, more danger, and more destruction in Numudan's base. But Numudan knows this is his last chance of making it into this tournament. And honestly, it's looking pretty grim. Corvinus, honestly surprising most of us, I think, taking down Numudan 2-0 as it looks right now. So Numudan needs to try and make magic happen, but this is looking really grim for him right now.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, Corvinus definitely has the upper hand right now, but let's not, I don't want to call it until this last battle, just because I've seen Numudan, I've seen how he can do in terms of turtling, how he can do in terms of being defensive, so we'll see if he has the ability, but an entire neighborhood gets absolutely torn apart by those manganiques and the area effect that those flaming rocks are able to do. Hopefully he transitions away from those, because that mass is coming in. Spearmen going to be coming in. Nope, there are flaming rocks heading over there, and it looks like some archers, some crossbowmen for the background of Corvinus trying to do some damage, but those desert raiders, they are going to hit with some bonus damage from those spearmen. Does he have enough spearmen for this to matter? Maybe not so much. Desert raiders on the backside, that eastern side, creating a little bit of duress for him as well. The manganiques remain alive. A cleanup by Numudan, flaming rocks or otherwise, this looks to be pretty good.
Now, those manganiques did an amazing job at keeping the pressure here, but if they just had a little rock in their arsenal, it could have been even harder. Now, Corvinus, even though the numbers are looking like Numudan came out okay here, Numudan is on the back legs right now. He's got 1,100 gold, but that gold is all he's got, because at the back line, there's still constant raids. There's still constant villages being picked up. There's a gold back there, but there's some surprise hiding at the back too. Corvinus now, he doesn't mind losing a bit. He knows he's ahead, and even if he loses that army, idle time and more delay against Numudan is just gonna outlast. But we do see Numudan upgrading his TC right now. Like you said, he turtles, and turtle he does with that TC from Japan. He's definitely going to be able to hold on for another fight or two. Now the question is Corvinus going to learn from what he saw last game and make a trebuchet when dealing with that TC, or is it just going to TC dive every single time at the cost of some very, very expensive units?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously, you talk about how expensive they are, and they really are. There are 180 total resources for those Desert Raiders. And those, probably about 14 units that were here, those camel units that were back there, they're continuing to remain a little bit of a problem. I mean, that Shinto priest trying to get that relic for a long time isn't able to do that. Now, Corvinus is making a little bit of a composition change and adding some archers, especially with Numudan getting a lot of spearmen. Those archers are going to end up making quick work of them. And then you have those Desert Raiders and stuff like that that comes up a little bit clutch in that situation. Now, Numudan is continuing to gather stone. He did get the second upgrade for the town center. He's looking to get enough stone to shoot a rocket into the moon. And having a Japanese base that you're attacking against that is shooting rockets at you, it proves to be a little bit effective in your turtling strategy.
Problem is, Numudan's composition now consists of spearmen. And he's not consistently producing at the moment either. We can see all of those production buildings are idle. Now, oh, there we go. Oh, he was just waiting for the switcheroo with those samurais coming out. Are those Onabugeshas or are they samurais?
I think they're just samurais to me. He just got those upgrade. Yes, they look very similar, so I could definitely understand the confusion. But I definitely agree with the if you're thinking about samurai instead of Onabugisha, or if that's your options, because those Desert Raiders having so much armor, those Onabugisha aren't going to do anything to you.
And with those samurais, you can actually try to survive just a little bit longer to get something done. And a few of them get queued up, but now with Japan going for a second TC, Numudan is trying to turtle his way back into this game. Corvinus now at 158 supply. Numudan is definitely going to have a very hard time here. That tower at the front being reinforced as well. Definitely going to provide a little bit of pressure there. That TC looking chonky AF. And the villagers running for their lives inside right now.
Yeah, for those spearmen, I mean, he sees all those archers, and he's like, oh my god. Everything that I just made is going to get absolutely destroyed. And even though these Desert Raiders are still going to make up that front mass, a couple camels go down around some of those Japanese farm fields, archers are going to end up actually making the front line just a little bit. I think Corvinus in the background went up to Imperial Age as the Ayubid, so he's taking this fight while he goes to Imperial. I'm not sure if he's going to end up staying alive here. Obviously, the town center, the home town center for the Japanese is going to help him out. Maybe he can continue with Defender's Advantage, keep making those spearmen, keep making that stuff, but maybe after Imperial Age and you get the technological advantage, you get some gunpowder, that could be a real problem.
Now the problem, and he gets reinforcement with this as well. So these units, I don't think Numudan is going to be able to have an answer to them too soon, because now, even though he's ahead militarily, that was a lot of idle time. It's really, really tough to claw your way back into this, and Corvinus, he's just a sneaky, sneaky boy, making barracks at the back here. That TC not being reinforced is going to struggle a little bit against those barracks that are just going to pump out units non-stop. Now, Corvinus, we can see crossbowmen in the field, more archers, getting a dervish. This man is prepping for a big, big fight. And with all that food in the bank, I'm excited to see what's coming out of that base.
You know, to be honest, I didn't really understand why Corvinus chose to make that fight in the first place, because he clicked the imp button and then pushed his army. And you already have the map control just having your army here, right? I mean, obviously, you could be doing some resource management. You could be idling villagers. You could be killing some villagers, whatever the case. But you're obviously ahead in that regard. So you could wait for imp and wait for your upgrades. Obviously, he has so much gold. He's going to be able to get whatever upgrade that he necessarily wants. He has enough food. He's going to be able to push out just about everything. And if you're Numudan, this is a big uh-oh moment, because you've been doing everything to try to keep up in military production. And because you don't have that stockpile of resources because you've been continuously using it, you see that Corvinus just had 3,600 that he could spend on a fancy wing for his House of Wisdom. So this definitely shows to Numudan that he's behind by a country mile. Now it's going to be up to him if he can claw his way back up.
And with those elite upgrades now in queue, those Gulams are going to be so hard to kill, especially with 4 Yumis. They don't do too well against those, and especially not with upgrades alongside them. Now, Numudan, he doesn't look like he's too sure about where to move here. He knows he's trying to claw his way back. And at the same time, you guys can see those resources. He doesn't want to make anything. He's going imp. And at the same time, look at that ram. He's going to try and turtle, make sure that he can destroy as much as he can. But now from Numudan, what is he going to age up with? Is he just going to get a very, very healthy keep? Or is he going to go for the free units?
Yeah, I think you definitely need Castle of the Crow here, but he goes with the Gunsmith. Maybe the Castle of the Crow is playing not to lose. He's going with the Gunsmith and playing to win because he obviously needs to do that. So that would what I would imagine be a strategy. Now these Samurai, even though they are of the Castle Age variety, remember with Samurai, not only do you have the deflection, but you have the special Castle Age technology Odachi, which increases your damage towards infantry, and a Gulam doesn't necessarily have that much in the way of damage. So the Samurai might be able to do a good job of keeping those Gulams at bay, but we'll have to see how many he's able to make while going up to Imperial at the same time. This begs the question, though, Wham, and as Corvinus is continuing to mass up his army, he's starting to get pop capped. Is this just an opportunity to let Numudan get back into the game?
The problem is Numudan now gets free units. And honestly, I feel like Corvinus is so far ahead here that he possibly cannot get back into game. And look at that Aeobid ram. That is in queue. Corvinus realizes it is time for us to switch things up. Put a little bit of pressure here from the front, from the back. Let's sandwich this man. We put him in the middle, we put a little oil in him, and we go straight in. Real smooth. So Corvinus, he is not looking at waiting. Now the question is just, is Numudan going to be able to shut down at least one of these sides?
Yeah, I think it's going to prove to be difficult. He needs just about all of his army mass to stop one side effectively. So him doing this pinching kind of two army style approach, especially with a military lead of 94 to 53 and a decent amount of army value, he's going to use that Tower Assaultant to bumble and stumble its way over to try to do a little bit of damage. So these Desert Raiders going to make the front line over here on the western side while Corvinus pushes on east at the exact same time. I'm sure that Tower of the Sultan will end up getting there. But again, you're splitting an army mass of Numudan into two different areas. Those Samurai doing rather impressive towards those Gulams because they are of elite stature now. He did get all of those upgrades. And because there's only archers coming out of Corvinus, I don't see any crossbowmen. I think Numudan's going to hold this again.
Feels like he's holding this with at least just half the army value. These Japanese TCs are just doing an amazing job. This one was a little bit more expensive considering how many went down. And Corvinus, I'm just not sure how to close out the game for him again. And now Numudan is pushing towards Corvinus at the same time. Corvinus with all of the lead, all of the water, and just not able to break that Japanese TC. Corvinus, he's a firm believer of not getting any trebuchets.
See, I mean, I think, honestly, I feel like there's a very clear way to actually win this game. And if he got the Sacred Sites 10 minutes ago, we'd be going on to the next series. You know, Numudan, because he has to turtle, right? He's trying to get his economy underway. He's trying to make sure he has enough units to stay alive and keep his villagers alive. Going out on the map is an absolute no-go for him. So getting those Sacred Sites or making Japan push out to you, and this is something that's very good, not only against something like the Japanese, but against someone like the English or any kind of civilization that proves to be defensive, is you got to shoot at them from a distance. You know, you can use bombards, you can use trebs to try to get in there, because if you're continuing to push into that, it's going to prove to be an issue. Now, Corvinus does have some very expensive eco ships. What is that one called, if you can click on it? A Zebek! Absolutely. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, because it's the first time I have seen it in months. But it operates just like a Carrack of the Western civilization, so maybe quick work of that ram.
Now, with Corvinus switching over to hand cannoneers, this is definitely going to be a much harder fight for Numudan to win. But, fun fact, hand cannoneers, they die pretty quickly to rockets and TCs that fire really hard. So these hand cannoneers, while impressive, it's still not going to be the easiest answer against that TC. Corvinus needs to find a way to actually deal with that TC, and he says manganiques are the way. Still not getting that sacred... Oh, he's getting the sacred site. The sacred site has been discovered. Finally, Corvinus steps on top of it. The dervish finally decides it is time. He has listened to the prayers of Twitch chat and stepped on top. Now with the Manjaniques there, this is going to be a much harder fight, and we can see Numudan is doubling down on Samurais. He is getting more of those. And now the question is Numudan going to survive this last push? And I feel like this could be the last one, because I don't know if Numudan can replace this. It feels like Numudan is spending everything he can.
And, you know, we saw the last game with the Roost as he's building stone walls up there just to kind of make sure that nobody can get transported in from the other side. They might prove to be effective. I think those Osutsu might be able to do a decent amount of damage to that Zebek. Yeah, and it does. But they're going to be able to get that stone wall up. If there was a time, now we saw that first game with Roost versus Byzantines, and Corvinus made about 12 Springolds and ended up winning a game. If there was a time to make Springolds, I would actually pick this game. Because of all the samurai that are out there, and with Oda tactics, as Numudan will be getting, those samurai will be pretty strong. But again, he's got hand cannoneers, he's got the serpentine powder. I saw that getting researched as well, so you get that extra bonus damage to melee infantry. You definitely will be able to make quick work of these samurai. So I feel like Numudan's got to add a little bit something else.
Numudan now is bargaining on these Azotsus to get the big enough mass to deal. The thing is, they don't have the longest of range, and Mangonels do pretty good against them. Now, with 50 Samurais, 8 more in a queue, he's still not close to pop cap, but this looks like this fight is inevitable, and those Azotsus need to be careful, because the Manjaniques are looking straight at them.
And I'm very interested to see if those Mangonels do have adjustable crossbars. It looks like that fight is going to be taking, whether we like it or not, these samurai are continuing to get on to that front line, and because of how many there are, they're able to swarm a lot of those desert raiders. They end up going down. Asutsu being pretty good firepower in the background. Hand cannoneers doing the best they can, but you got to remember with those samurai, that first attack is deflected. So those hand cannons, you think they're effective, obviously, with serpentine powder. They weren't as effective as maybe Corvinus necessarily wanted them to be. All of a sudden, Manjaniques are down, desert raiders are down, hand cannoneers are walking in the opposite direction. Numudan might have found his way back in, Wayman.
I'm very confused as to how Corvinus managed to get to 32 minutes, having full control of the map. He has every single resource in his arsenal, but keeping in mind, Numudan cannot replenish this army that easily. It is only due to free units and lots of wood. We can see here showing out the Ozutsus being made with every single ticket he can afford. But now we're getting to that point where the gold is starting to look a little bit questionable here, although Numudan, it feels like he's going to be able to push out and take control of one of those golds.
I think there's that one small gold vein on the southern end, that bottom gold that's over there. That might be the only thing that Numudan has left that's relatively safe, and that looks like that's where he's going right now, because you're going to need a little bit of that gold to make sure you can consistently go up in the samurai production. And he does have his bannerman as well. That will be effective. So because Corvinus had those sacred sites, and obviously it's a very good thing to do, getting them obviously to get that little bit of gold, now it forces Numudan to go out there, right? You're not going to have the defender's advantage. You don't have the town center helping you. Now you have to actually decap these things as the Asutsu just obliterate any production building that ends up going there. That barracks is going to get absolutely destroyed. Hopefully. Can you hit it one more time for me? Oh my god, I look so stupid. It's still alive. Okay, it's done.
He just wanted to get the one at the back. There was
I
a little
know.
bit of confusion. Costicus, come on, Tim.
I was confused as well. And now Corvinus is trying to bolster his military production. Now we're even. We're around 80 to 80 on both sides. Corvinus is about population cap. Numudan is getting there as well. So now with those Ozutsu, you can take down keeps pretty quickly as well. That keep already at about half. You definitely don't need your own siege if you're getting that stuff for free. Those front line, again, continuing to be of the Desert Raider variety and some Ghulams, which will do some bonus damage. But because of that keep, because of the power of those hand cannoneers, he's going to start to back up in the opposite direction. I think he's going to need a little bit more something than those samurai. Don't get me wrong, they're good, but something to deal with the massive amount of hand cannoneer that he's going to see.
And the problem is now Azotsus, they're showing their weakness. They don't do too well when they're out on the map and things are on top of them. So Numudan now, with that little bit of gold from the bottom there, he's doing his best to try and get that max pop. Samurais still being the weapon of choice. Now the question is he eventually going to use a ticket there to just get a cannon and try to take down one of these keeps so he can slowly start moving out? And 5 minutes on the Sacred Side timer, it is starting to look a little bit tough because you need to find a way to get this down and push out. Now with these camels breaking off, you might have an opportunity like that. These villagers, even if they go down, Numudan not too worried about them, but he is worried about that gold. That's exactly what he needs. His Ozotsus need to find a way to take that keep down and get a little bit more map control. Maybe get a keep of his own, especially with the Japanese variety. They are quite intimidating when they start firing.
And that's kind of the problem, Whammon, is all this stuff takes time. He's adding, it looked like he was adding some different production buildings. I'm not sure if they were more barracks or archer ranges to kind of deal with this, but now he's going to be trying to take down this keep, and I think he's got a decent amount of Asutsu. He's got about 14, 15. Maybe they provide some of the firepower that is necessary. But you're talking about taking down that keep. I think it's more so you want to take down some of these units so those samurai end up staying healthy. Hand cannoneers are in the back, getting shielded, body blocked by some of those desert raiders with the impressive amount of melee armor that they have. But my god, Whammon, this is a swarm of samurai. Everybody is slicing and dicing from the Japanese Empire, and it looks like they got onto the hand cannoneers, and they're going to be able to shorten that mass just a little bit. He's got 4 minutes. Is he going to be able to continuously produce these samurai and continue to push in the decap of Sacred Site?
The problem is, now, Corvinus is doing an amazing job at target firing those Azotsus. There's just too many of them to actually shut them down completely. And he's going to lose quite a bit of villagers here. Now, Corvinus having the whole map to himself, this whole game, it actually looks like he is starting to struggle replacing these units. We see he's got more hand cannoneers in queue, and now with the villagers dying, you'd be like, oh, there's more time for, more space for military units, but I don't think that's the case here. Corvinus is using every bit of resource, and Numudan is just living his best life.
Yeah, now he has that gold that's a little bit available to you, so he can continue to pump out those samurai if he wants to. A big shout out to Beastie for his raid in this pivotal game number 2. It is match point for Corvinus, trying to hang on to this Sacred Site. 3 minutes, guys. Do not go anywhere. This might be a photo finish. You're hearing that ring-a-ding-ding. 3 minutes left. He's got a lot of defenses up here, Whammon. He's got keeps. He's got stone walls, which he's continuing to make. Now, for Numudan, this is his time to strike. He took down a decent amount of hand cannoneers and a decent amount of army. Is this going to be enough samurai to make a difference? Japanese going with the castle background right next to that keep. Now, remember, that thing fires so many rockets, it might be able to help take down a keep of the Ayubids. We'll see if it's going to be able to. Gulams and Desert Raiders making up that front line, getting decimated, but those hand cannoneers just have too much strength. Was this enough, though, for this castle? Was this enough to provide a little bit of a foothold to maybe decap one?
The problem is Numudan needs to be able to remax here, and he does not have the food for that just yet. In a way, trying to sell that wood would probably help him to try and get back into this, making a unit of siege, Those are quite nice to have. But I just don't know if Numudan has the answer here to actually break through here. The Ozotsu's down to now 8. That is not enough when dealing with this many keeps. He's got 1 minute and 45 on this timer, and honestly, I don't know if he's going to have any way of breaking through this. The Ozotsu's making quick work of the tower, but now the stone wall is next. And let's see how that thing bursts open. At the same time, Corvin is doing the same on the other side. The Ozotsu's trying their best, but even this tower is quite chunky.
Well, you got to remember the new rules for the Sacred Sites now. I mean, you definitely just get one of your units over there just to stop this timer. This minute and 10 seconds is probably the longest of Corvinus's life, as he's waiting to get to that match point and get to that pivotal round of 8 to try to get into the EGC Masters main event. That stone wall is going to go down pretty quickly. Ding, ding, ding. 1 minute. Couple keeps out here. Lots of Gulams, lots of hand cannoneers. Is this going to be enough for Corvinus to make this push stopping? A lot of these samurai are going to be able to try to make that front line. And he pretty much is continuing with only samurai. Now, because he tried to get that Sacred Site near the water, Zebex were going in here and doing some cannon damage. It was crazy. So now he's got to back up and think about an opposite strategy. 30 seconds. I don't know if he has the time. Tick, 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 Whammon. This is going to be a photo finish.
The problem still doesn't have an answer to these keeps. 9 Ozotsus are not going to be it. The villagers are desperately trying to get on top of the sacred site. Samurais are ready. Villagers are taking some fire here, and they're trying to decap. Camels are here, though, and they're ready. Now, the Ozotsus, they are going to do their best to get this keep to go down, but this is going to be a really, really tough one. To keep firing real hard, but he only shots one at a time, and this is not going to be enough to take down this army. The samurais are standing on top. We have the sacred side victory on 16 seconds. It's holding strong. The camels are dying on the sacred side, though, and it's looking pretty even in army count, but keep in mind, these are 2 keeps firing with, and Numudan's firepower just doesn't look like it's enough. More villages being pulled. Villagers from both sides. Corvinus has pulled the boys. Everyone's standing on top. They're ready to absorb those rockets from this Japanese keep, and they're ready to fire back.
Unbelievable. And those sacred site victories, this is essentially a sacred site victory, are some of the most climactic games that Age of Empires 4 can give you. A 41.5-minute game which ends with the sacred sites by Corvinus taking a 2-0 away from Numudan in the round of 16. Corvinus will be waiting for another opponent in that round of 8 best of 5 to try to get in there and try to get into the Masters main event. Numudan played absolutely fantastic. His ability to kind of hole up and make sure to actually make this a game. I thought Corvinus was going to end up steamrolling him in the middle, like in the middle Castle Age kind of area. But Corvinus got those sacred sites. He made the Japanese player get up and in his face, and that defender's advantage made all the difference. Congratulations to Corvinus for a 2-0. And, you know, this is one of those series. I mean, I get it. You know, this was a 2-0, but Numudan is a very good player, you know, so this series could have definitely gone either way.
The problem for Corvinus now is he needs to face off against the winner between Cat and Avely, and Cat has been looking really, really strong.